I am really, really honoured and excited to introduce our first speaker today. So, Dinaz Stafford. And Dinaz grew up in India, and after getting her master's degree in psychology in the USA, she worked in the film industry and community development around the world. Dinaz is now focused on AV shows, film, and art projects within the UK. After the success of Salam Bombay, Dinaz helped to start the Salam Balak Trust in order to provide individualized programs of development for street children in Mumbai. And since 1989, the trust has grown to incorporate shelter, education, creative activities, sports, and career projects. And Dinaz was involved with the Bombay chapter since its inception and gave up her trusteeship after 2014. Recently, Dinaz was the casting director for the incredible Disney movie, Queen of Katwe. And Queen of Katwe was the impetus for Dinaz to become involved in the Sasoya Undugu Dance Academy to benefit children in the slums of Kampala, Uganda. So it is my pleasure, Dinaz. If you'd like to go ahead and do your beautiful presentation for us today, we'd be delighted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to begin by thanking ARCC for having me come and speak on this International Women's Day on Choose to Challenge. It gives me an opportunity to thank my mum, who chose to challenge the male patriarchal status quo and left and returned to India after an unhappy marriage and raised 4 children as a single mum. So Mum, if you're watching this, hats off to you. I think women all over the world, not only in Asia, have to challenge. And not only do we have to challenge inequalities, but we also have to rise to the challenge of meeting our potential. It doesn't mean that one forgets about being a caring woman, because we are all by nature caring and nurturing people. And this is very essential in the modern world with the modern vagaries of life, and especially in these uncertain times. But it does mean we have to challenge stereotypes which belittle the position of women in society. And time and again, we see that if given a chance, women will rise up and excel, as they should. As Timothy Leary once said, that women who strive to be equal to men lack ambition. Women are used to multitasking. Women are used to being nurturing to their children. But if anybody comes and is a danger to their family, they turn into tigresses and challenge. My own personal journey, where I learned to challenge the system, began when I was at university in the United States. After I finished my master's, I did my first job with violent, emotionally disturbed kids in the state of North Carolina. On discovering corruption in the government, I discussed it with my colleagues, and they explained to me that if you made any complaint, you would lose your job and you would never be able to work in the mental health system again. And not being from the States and being from India, it meant that I could be their voice and I could be the author of a document that we then sent to the federal court system complaining about what was happening. It was quite scary, and I did land up getting fired before it was complete. I was only 23 years old. But a couple of months later, when I was temping one day in an office in New York, the phone rang, and it was the authorities calling to say that the federal court had ruled in our favor and had said there was corruption in the system and that the whole system had been handed over to the Johns Hopkins University in order to carry on work in an efficient and good manner. So I was quite amazed and very thrilled. I was also a bit surprised that they managed to call me, and I said to them, "How did you find me?" And he laughed and he said, "Well, miss, we are the FBI." So it was an example for me of challenging the system and actually coming up on top, being able to make a difference. And the friends that I made then, all those years ago, are still my friends today, because we knew that we had done something that meant something very important to the state of North Carolina. I returned to India, and when I began working with Meera Naya on Salam Bombay, Meera Naya, if anybody was to choose to challenge, it's her. She's always challenging the status quo. She's always raising her voice, whether in all her films, even in her latest television series, which was called A Suitable Boy. It was a story, it was a love story, and it was a story about family. But she still managed to lever in a lot of comments about the Hindu-Muslim problem, which is rearing its ugly head in India today. Anyway, when we made the film, it was about prostitution, and it was about drug addiction, it was about police corruption, exploitation. It would have, in today's world, be called, it would have been called poverty porn. But in 1987, when we made this film, we made it because nobody discussed the problems of street children in Bombay. And once the film was released, I was actually approached by the government of Maharashtra, who said, "You have brought shame upon our country. All diplomats are asking, what are you going to do about the problem of street children in India?" And what is the street children? They said to me. And I sat down and explained to the Department of Social Welfare, and the then Secretary, Shashi Mishra, who, God bless her, is no longer with us. She started CCVC herself, which was an organization that worked for vulnerable children in order to ensure that they were able to escape exploitation. So our job is not only to choose to challenge the system, but also to stand with other women in making sure that they can also challenge the system and finding ways in which we can cooperate and actually create systems that will make the world a more equitable place. After the film was released, we started Salam Balak Trust, and it has thousands and thousands of children have gone through a system. So as Amina says, a creative act like a poem can influence people. A creative act like making a film can influence people to change the world. And Salam Balak Trust has grown. When COVID struck, this trust had to rise to the job of helping many more street-based people in order to just have the basics of food. So every week there would be a truck that would go out into the streets and actually just hand out food parcels. Lizzie, can we have the first slide? I don't know whether I'll be able to see it, but yeah, we should, there you go, that's it. So that was Salam Bombay, and these are a few photographs we have of the trust that really works. You can keep moving through them, Lizzie, till you finish 8 photographs. So the trust has carried on working with the same population. They begin at a young age, and we take them through the system. We bring in a lot of different, oh, there I am in that picture. You can see I was much younger then. We give them a lot of opportunity. We bring in a lot of expertise in order to inspire them and expose their world so that they can develop as productive adults in society. I could go on about this trust, but really this is about choosing to challenge and not really, I'm not going to concentrate just on the trust. So what is important is how we are going to challenge the status quo, and how challenging the status quo allows us to crush oppression, fight injustice, and find solutions, alternatives to the narrative. And it is in these alternatives that we can actually find a way to excel. not just gender-based issues, all issues. And today, more than ever before, it is extremely relevant in these uncertain times with the pressure that we have on the environment. We have to take our position as women, as the nurturers, as the carers, and actually make a difference. Lizzie, can I have the Queen of Katwe image, please? The next one. The last film I made was Queen of Katwe, where I worked in the capacity of casting director. This young girl that you see here in this picture was from the slums of Kampala. She herself had had a very sketchy education, but she was incredibly talented and she danced really well. She landed up becoming the main lead for Queen of Katwe, and within a year, she was flying around to Los Angeles and London, representing the film and being feted at various film festivals. I was so impressed with this young girl because now she's much older, she's 18 years old, and she is now faced with finishing school, which she has completed at a very prestigious international, quite expensive school. And now that she's come to the end of it, I asked her what she was going to do. And she said she had a dream to join a university as an actress and as a dancer to learn about acting and dancing, which she would then like to return to Kampala and work, creating a center with the Sosolia Undugu Dance Academy, which is through which she operates. Now, this dream is a difficult one, especially in a post-Trump America. And thanks to the Black Lives Matter movement, she's also very clear about the danger of racism and the prejudice that she will encounter there as a young girl from Uganda. But she's ready to challenge the status quo. She is choosing to challenge. She's a warrior woman, and she's going to take the steps necessary in order to enter a world which is stacked against her, to work in the United States as a student and to learn. So she will have to combat racism and prejudice, and she's doing that with her eyes open. We talk about it, and she's very open about it. So more power to you, Medina, and we can all take a leaf from her book. We need to rise above racial discrimination and meet the challenge of the times. We need to challenge the concept of being considered minorities. And this requires a life commitment. When I was speaking to my uncle recently. He's 76 years old and he's a doctor in the United Kingdom. And he said to me, "Oh, Dinaz, how do you think things will ever change? Nothing is really going to change with the Black Lives Matter movement." He said, can you imagine the head of Wimbledon being Indian, for example? I said, "Of course I can." He said, "Oh, you will be disappointed." And I said, "No, my job as a woman is not to listen to my uncle, but to reach and strive and find the right person, no matter what gender or from which country, to lead." So yeah, on this International Women's Day, we must consider our role and the challenge that we face. We are the parents who teach. We are the defenders of cooperation and care. This is our role, and we have to make sure that gender structures do not prevent us from reaching our full potential. We have to keep an eye out. We have to warn men not to bully, not to control, not to abuse. But then what? When can we reach the point where we acknowledge our men and thank them for being of some use on our journey? Thank them for being a friend. Thank them for holding the children when we are too busy or on Zoom calls to do so. Thank them for fighting in our corner. In 2004, I made a film called Still the Children Are Here. Lizzie, if we can have the last slide. It was about the Garo tribals. They are a community in the northeast of India. They're matrilineal. So the clan lines go through the women, and the women own the land. The two matriarchs of the story, who were had two large families below them, here you can see the two of them, they were talking to me about rice growing and about what they did and about worshiping. They actually worshipped rice and are responsible for the diversity of rice in the gene pool, and it's very important to scientists who work in rice. So these two old women were sitting and smoking, and one of them said to me, you know, without a man, we are nothing. And the other woman said, yes, you know, without a man, we are nothing. I was quite taken aback. Here we were, it was a matrilineal society, and they kept saying, without a man, we are nothing. I said, what do you mean? I was quite outraged. Well, they said, you need a man to build a house, to help in the fields, to carry the bamboo, to work for you. Without a man, we are nothing. So women who are in control had this level of assuredness so that they could honestly comprehend the interdependent relationship that they had with their men. And that was a lesson for me, because it allowed me to appreciate that in our quest for our equality and in our quest to be considered as equal or as women in our own right, we should not forget what the role that men have in this story. Since we're on the subject of gender, I'd like to also point out that in today's time, gender fluidity is a good thing. I'm very pleased at all the changes that have happened as far as the concepts of masculinity and femininity is concerned. I can honestly say that although I'm a curvaceous woman, I'm honestly very masculine, and my husband has many feminine traits, and this is a good thing. So really, we have to learn to accept that it's only cooperation and honest dialogue with all folk that we can rise to the challenge of these times. Times that are environmentally challenging, technologically challenging, and very emotionally trying. And so I'll end my little talk with a refrain that we used when we were making Salam Bombay in Bombay Hindi. It was Jo Dara Wo Mara, which means if you are scared, you are already dead. Jo Dara Wo Mara. In these COVID times, it's a very important message that we all take with us. Do not be scared, rise to the challenge, and move ahead. It's a time of change, but life is exciting. So thank you very much. I'll take questions at the end.